Welcome to Beyond Survival, Triumphantly You, a space where extraordinary women share their journeys from struggle to strength. I'm Gwen Heinrichs, and in each episode, we sit down with survivors, fighters, and thrivers, women who have not only conquered breast cancer, but have turned their battles into purpose and empowerment. Their stories will uplift, inspire, and remind you that survival isn't the end, it's just the beginning. Join us every Thursday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, Beyond Survival, Triumphantly You. Subscribe now and be a part of the journey. Okay. Hi, Terri Sterk. Welcome to Beyond Survival, Triumphantly You, where I interview and have conversations with remarkable and smart, intelligent women who have been through traumas and who are helping others get through theirs. And I am going to introduce you now so that our listeners and watchers will know who you are. So today we are joined by Terri Sterk. She is a two-time breast cancer survivor, a wellness coach, and an author of three powerful books that guide women through recovery, emotional healing, and spiritual growth. With years of experience supporting survivors, Terri brings wisdom, compassion, and real world tools to help women move from surviving to thriving, which is just what we want to do here on Beyond Survival. So welcome, Terri.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, Gwen.
Thanks for joining us. So, um, publishing three books, that's amazing. A lot of people have experiences they want to publish and they can't even seem to get one book off the shelf, on the shelf. I guess that's the way to put it. So Terri, your first book, Thrive After Breast Cancer, emphasizes a holistic approach to recovery. What inspired you to integrate physical, emotional, and spiritual healing into your guide?
Well, when I was initially diagnosed with breast cancer, I was focused on survival, which I think all of us can relate to, is just doing what our doctors tell us and get through it. And it was towards the tail end of radiation, and I could not stop crying. And my doctor was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Because I had always been the strong one. But all of a sudden, I wasn't strong anymore. And that's when I realized I've got emotional healing to deal with, not just physical. I'd also had lots of conversation with God over those 6 months that were now turning into 9 months. And I knew that there was more to healing at that point. And so that's when I started on that journey to understand what all that meant. And I came up with the word thrive for myself, is I've got to thrive, not just survive. And so I've carried that forward for years now. So
Yeah, very good. And you've helped other women achieve that as well. Tell me a little bit about the role of God. You said you found God or you turned to God. You might have already found God, but you turned to
yeah.
God. And how did that help you through your journey?
Well, I was already, I already had God in my heart when I was diagnosed. But it was really the biggest trauma of my life. And so I had to grab onto something because I realized I didn't control any of this. So being a control freak, which I was at the time, I realized I can't control this. I've got to let go and let God. And so that's what I did. I just started to relax more and not worry so much. And because I knew that there was God in my corner. And so I would spend lots of time, whether it was in the tub, the bathtub, or whether it was sitting on my deck in the backyard. I would look for God and listen for guidance. Um, and so that got me through and grew my spiritual, the spiritual parts of me. Because I don't think I truly stood at the time until that big cancer word came into my life, what God could do for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
big wake up call for sure. Another follow-up question to that. You said you started to look for God. Where
Mm-hmm.
did you find God?
I found God in my heart. I knew that he was there. I just had not paid attention. And so I that's when I started journaling too. I journaled every day, or as whenever there were things to journal about, to track my journey physically, doctor's appointments and results and things like that. But I also started tracking, my feelings and the spiritual parts of each day, where I saw God, whether it was in my children, because they were very young at the time. They were 7 and 9 when I was initially diagnosed. So I saw God in them, and I knew that he was helping protect them and also sent angels. And here's an example. I called their school to say, Mom has breast cancer. Can you keep an eye on my kids? And the guidance counselor called me back and said, I am a survivor. I know what to do. So that was an angel, because she already understood what I was going through. And when my kids were so young, she was able to touch base with their teachers and make sure they were staying on top of their homework and things like that. Just kept
Mm-hmm.
them in a normal, kept normalcy in their lives at school. So that was good.
Yeah. And you recognize that God sent you angels too. You recognize that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Um, so having spent 7 years facilitating support groups for women with breast cancer, what
Mm-hmm.
common challenges did you observe? And how do these experiences shape the advice you offer in your book?
Well, a lot of those 7 years, they were in the hospitals, 2 hospitals in my town in Iowa, in my city. And they were women going through treatment at the time. And so there was a lot of focus on chemo and radiation and surgery and options and side effects, all of those medical things. But then there would be questions come up about, I can't stop crying. I have all these worries. I'm concerned about reoccurrence, all of the fear. Um, those questions started coming up too. And because I had the experience and with my own life and my own understanding of the emotional healing that needed done, I recognized it in others. But to answer your question, initially, because they're in the middle of that survival mode, it was all about physical healing. How do I get through this? How do I handle these side effects? Which is important too. My work now is on the other side of cancer. It's more about, how do I get back into life? How do I find my normal again? Or how do I find an even better normal? So I took that experience in support groups, facilitating support groups, into my coaching now. But first of all, the reason I stopped with the facilitating support groups was because I was diagnosed for a second time. So when I received that diagnosis, I stepped down from my role.
I didn't realize that you were already coaching women prior to your second diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
The first diagnosis, um, what did that teach you about how to handle your second diagnosis? Going through the first time,
Mm-hmm.
it's shocking, traumatic. I'm sure going through the second time is as well. But you learned
Yeah.
something during your first time, and how did that apply to how you dealt with it?
Well, I knew a lot, and that's good and bad. The good is that I was better informed about breast cancer and the treatments. So I already had questions right out of the gate. One of them is, why do I need chemo again? Um, because I did have to have chemo a second time. But my point is, I knew enough from my first experience to have the right questions to ask right away, um, because I was just further along than someone right off the street, or than I was the first time. Because cancer was like, I called it the cancer underworld the first time. I'm like, who are these people? I didn't know there were all these beautiful people in the world, the nurses and the cancer specialists and the doctors. So the second time, I already knew about them. And I had already had my dream team, which is what I called them from my first go round. So I had the same breast surgeon, I had the same oncologist, I had the same radio oncologist. Then I added a double mastectomy to my list. So I had a plastic surgeon added to my team, actually two plastic surgeons. So I guess my point is, I already had a team that were monitoring me. It had been 10 years. So, so I was their success story.
Mm.
Then when I got it again, they were every single one of them was just shocked. This shouldn't be happening again. They realized this is not a reoccurrence. It was a second tumor in the opposite breast. It did not spread to anywhere in my body. So we knew that was good. They did stop the cancer, but
Mm-hmm.
now another tumor appeared. So anyway, to answer your question, I knew enough to not have some fears, but then I had new experiences that I had never dealt with before, like the double mastectomy, like working with a plastic surgeon. I had never encountered that before. So was lots of new, but I would say I had more confidence
Mm-hmm.
going into it. Um, Back to my kids, they were now 10 years older, so they were teenagers. One was a senior in high school, the other was a freshman or a sophomore in college. It was hard on them because now they could recall when mom was sick 10 years before, but there were things they didn't understand that they now understood. And so it scared them even more. It had the opposite effect. I had less fear, they had more. So cancer wasn't just about me, it was about keeping my teenagers above water. We had
Mm.
both of them in counseling because we needed them to succeed in school. Um, yeah, it was a whole same ball game, another inning maybe, um, but very different. Mostly because my family was different. They were older, and I was different because I had already been there. I had
Mm-hmm.
already helped women for 7 years, so I had a lot of knowledge that I didn't have the first time.
Um, Terri, tell me a little bit about what tools that you use to teach women to help them get through this time, this
I
difficult
use,
time.
yeah, I believe in that we can self heal our emotional anguish. We can do lots to help ourselves, and we do that with coping skills. If we learn how to cope, so that we're doing positive things to deal with stress or anxiety or fear, if we're using positive coping skills, then we're going to improve our own health because we're going to do things that are good for us, rather than leaning towards, food that we shouldn't eat or alcohol or things like that where we try to self-medicate. Let's medicate ourselves with positive things like yoga or reading devotionals or journaling. There's lots of different coping skills that I recommend to women depending on who they are, what they want, what they need, what inspires them, because we're all different. Everybody's different. So I don't have a one size fits all,
Mhm.
but I do have recommendations of coping skills that work for me. And I just make the same recommendations to others because I've tried them and I know they work.
Thank you. What kind of um, approaches might you take with someone who has difficulty looking at themselves in the mirror again? I
Yeah.
noticed that you have, I've been following you, of course, and I noticed that
Mm-hmm.
you've been talking about that lately. And so, what are your ideas about that?
Well, just the fact that we're women and a lot of us enjoy wearing makeup. We enjoy our clothes. We like our hair, and all of a sudden we don't have hair. And we've lost our eyebrows, and we've lost our eyelashes, and we even lost our breasts, if we've had a double mastectomy. There's scars everywhere. Um, that's tough. That's really hard. I figured out during my own journey that looking at those scars as battle wounds was how I looked at it. These are the things that demonstrate how hard I worked to get where I am today. And so I've tried to portray that to other women, that these scars are good. They demonstrate that you succeeded. And there are things we can do to eliminate scars, but we can also, or make them less visible. But the other point is, I also realize that our worth and our love of ourselves comes from within, not from how I look in a mirror. And so I asked women, or I challenged them to look at themselves in the mirror, but look at your eyes. Look straight into her eyes. I would talk about that image as a third person. Look into her eyes and realize you're looking at the inside of yourself. That's where your heart is. That's where you find joy. That's where you find worthiness. That's
And
where you
real
find
beauty.
exactly real beauty. That's where it is. I mean, I can help them feel better about their physical being, but to really heal, they need to go deeper. They need to go inside and find that real beauty inside.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks. Um, can you discuss the role of community and shared survivor stories in the healing process as highlighted in your book?
Mm-hmm. I encourage all women, like if they say, I was just diagnosed, what do I do? I said, the first thing you do is build a team, find your
Oh,
cheerleaders, find your community. These are the people, you start with family and the people you live with. And for me, it was girlfriends and also family members who just came running to help. Um, but finding that community and understanding that this is the time in my life to ask for help and not feel
yeah.
bad about it. I mean, I spent my life helping other people and I really didn't know how to ask for help myself. And so learning how to do that is so freeing. It's just completely freeing. Um, so that community is who you go to when you need assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had so many people who were texting me or calling or sending email, contacting me in many ways. It can be overwhelming to respond to each of those people individually. So I did a newsletter every week and just sent an email newsletter and posted it on Facebook as well. And I could just write one message and get it out to everyone who cared.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that was freedom. But I also, in those messages, I would tell them what I needed because they wanted to know. Then they could call me and say, hey, I saw your message and I'll give you that ride, or I'll come take your daughter to her gymnastics class, whatever it is. Um, but that's another technique to free up your own time, but also give your supporters what they want. They want to know how they can help.
Yeah. For
So
many of us, we
yeah,
never
go
really
ahead.
got enough. I'm sorry,
Go
there's a
ahead.
delay. For many of us, we really never had to ask for help.
Right.
And that's a hard thing for us to do, but it is tremendously freeing. You're right. I remember doing that myself. I said to my friends, check in on me. I didn't have specifics because I had people around me doing, tasks and things for me. But my friends online and my community online, I said, I need you to check in on me. I want to know that people are thinking about me. And it was
Mm-hmm.
simple. And all they had to do was call me or text me and say, hey, how you holding up? And that made me feel really good. But I had to decide that that's what I needed, and then communicate that to my people.
Right. Right. You have to, when someone asks you, what can I do for you? Give them something. Well, nothing, I'm fine is not the right answer. They're asking because they care and they don't know what to do. Cancer is scary,
Mm-hmm.
especially when, we were both diagnosed young. I was not even 40 when I was diagnosed. And I didn't understand how to be sick. I had never been sick. Um, and maybe you were the same way. You just don't even know what you need. Um, but I learned it pretty quick that if I need to tell these people who are offering their assistance what I need. And so I just created a list of stuff that really we could use help for. I have family. Obviously, they were bringing meals because I had kids and a husband, but it, there were other things like rides or just coming and sitting with me. I
Mm-hmm.
always liked someone to come by the house on day 2 after chemo because that's when I would be awake, but still not feeling very well. But just to
Mm-hmm.
have someone sitting next to me, just to be there was so helpful. But I figured out that's what I needed. You would have something else that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm saying is ask for it. Don't don't just do without.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful advice there, Terry. I know that that really changed the course of my treatment and how I coped with my treatment. And I think that's really, really good advice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, how do you address the emotional and spiritual aspects of recovery in your coaching and writing? And why do you believe the elements are crucial?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last sentence.
I said, um, why do you believe? I said, how do you address the emotional and spiritual aspects of recovery in your coaching and writing? And why do you believe these elements are crucial to
Okay.
thriving?
Okay. Yes. Well, I my second book is about emotional healing, and I knew I could write a whole book about that. The first book touches on it, and then the second book hits it, as much as I could. I'm not a guidance, a counselor of any sort. I'm just a woman who had breast cancer. And so I documented the things that I did, the things that I've talked to other women, and they've, how they got through their emotional healing. But the point is, we are emotional creatures, especially since we're human, but also the fact that we're women. We thrive with other women, or I think that's a scientific fact.
Mhm.
But I know it is for me that I thrive around other women. Um, and so that's why I think community is so important. But it helps with that emotional healing. If we have this big rock in our life called cancer and we just shove it under the rug and move on without dealing with that emotional healing, we're just going to come and trip over that rock a year from now, 10 years from now, whatever. The rock doesn't go away, it just sits there. And so the healing is important, but it's also, it can be, it's not exactly fun, at least when you start. Because what I have discovered is many women, and we're all this way, we have other trauma in our life, not just cancer. And so once you start peeling that onion back and talking about all the things that we're worried about or things that we're concerned about, it just opens up other wounds that we hadn't ever healed from. And so because we're such complex creatures, and we are, that's why I say healing is an ongoing process. It, I'm not done healing. I won't ever say I'm done healing because there's just, the older we get, the wiser we get, the more we know, the more we realize, hey, I got to deal with that. Um, so that's why I call it's like peeling an onion, because every layer you take off,
Mhm.
you finally get to the middle. That's where the good stuff is.
Um, your third book, Devotional for Women 90 Days of Encouragement, offers daily devotions to help women find hope and peace. What inspired you to create this devotional? And how does it support women facing life's challenges? And how is it different from the other books that you've written?
Yes, it is different. Um, I've always loved devotionals. I have a stack of them on my desk, and there's one I'm working on right now that I read every morning before I even start my day.
What
So
is it? Can you tell the readers what a devotional is?
yes, this is the one I'm working on right now. So a devotional, this one is a 40-day. Susie Larson, she's a pretty famous author, if you
Mhm.
want to look it up. But A devotional will usually start out with like for each day, a scripture, and then some sort of narrative about it, a reflection or a story. Like one in my book, I address all the different parts of healing. Like if you're trying to heal stress and anxiety, you're trying to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
There are tons of scriptures in the Bible to help us deal with stress and anxiety. And so then I wrote stories about it and wrote journaling prompts to help the reader reflect on that scripture, reflect on their own lives. So that's what a devotional does, is it helps us take a Bible scripture and apply it to our own lives. But I give them guidance, a reflection is what I call it in the book, a reflection to be able to understand what that scripture meant and how that even has anything to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the journaling prompt helps you do your own analysis. This book also has journaling prompts in it. And so I'm writing every day after I read her devotion. It's very healing. It's amazing.
Do you pick out the scriptures that you use?
I
Or do you think, what's the process? Like, do you think of a problem and then find a scripture that answers it? Or do you think, or do you find a scripture or proverb that that triggers some memory of the things that you went through?
all of that.
Uh,
But first of all, I have a friend that I met online, another breast cancer survivor, who loves devotions. And so she helped write some of them, or at least she gave me the idea. And then I would expand on her idea and put it in the book. So that was one way. Another way was whatever I would read what someone was going through in a post on Facebook. And I'm like, well, that is addressed in XYZ scripture. Let's talk about it. So I created 90 days because I feel it takes 90 days to create a habit. If you stick with it for 90 days, you're going to be looking for your next devotional at the end of that because it becomes such a part of your life, you can't let it go. I also wrote the book.
Self-discovery.
Yes, exactly. But I also wrote the book to be a tool. You can carry it with you. You can take it with you, like if you're going to the doctor and you have fear, you can take it with you and open it up to the chapter about fear and read scripture. Read the journaling that you wrote yourself. It can be a tool for self-healing, but it can also be a tool that takes you on into your life, into the future. At least that's my hope.
So if we have women who are watching this who want to get in touch with you, I want to talk about where they can find your book, where they can find you, where they can reach out to you, and all the different social media ways and whatever ways that you have women find you.
I do a weekly vlog, and those are all posted on YouTube. That's the place I like to send people because then they can watch my videos and get to know me a little bit. If they decide they want to talk to me personally, then the contact information, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are the three main places, and LinkedIn. but all my contact information is in all of those places. But I can
Okay,
also
so
give it to you to send out if you want.
I will. I will. I will put it on the YouTube descriptor, all the places that they can get in touch with you. And if they want your book, they get in touch with you or books.
The books are on Amazon. You can
Oh,
just search
nice.
under, you can search on my name, Terri Sterk, and all my books will show up for you.
That's
You can also
fantastic.
you can also get them wherever books are sold, um, online. It's not in every bookstore, but they're all online at all the big retailers.
Okay, thanks, Terry. I know that you're going to go on continuing to help women through their journeys of thriving, not just surviving, and getting them through the scariest parts of this journey. I love what you had to say about the scars. Being demonstrative of our warrior status. It made me think of the Native Americans who wear their scars proudly and to
Mm-hmm.
show the victories, and maybe not so many victories, but the victories that they have experienced. And I that just sort of hit me today talking to you, and I think it's a really a helpful way to look at that. But I thank you for joining us today. I will let everybody know in the description where to get in touch with you, and I know you're going to help so many more women with your books, and I appreciate talking to you.
Wonderful talking to you, Glenn.
All right, see you soon. I'll be
Thank
following you.
you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.